People who've had sex with their ex-friend's parent. How the heck did you get to that point? What happened after? Dated a girl for almost a year and thought everything was great. Used to spend lots of time at her house with her and her mother. Everything was beautiful. One weekend she went to New Orleans with friends. A month later she told me she'd met the man of her dreams while she was in New Orleans and she was moving to Memphis to live with him. A week later she was gone, leaving me in shock. Mom called me a week later and told me that the ex had left a couple of boxes of my stuff. So I went by to pick them up. Started talking to the mom, who was just as in shock about it as I was. Over the next few weeks me and the mom talked a lot about feelings. Both being hurt that the daughter had just packed and left both of us. We started texting a lot, especially late at night. Got a message from her late one night asking what I was doing. Jokingly told her I was in bed jerking off. She asked if I wanted company and I said always as an automatic throwaway comment, expecting her to laugh. Got no response to that and we texted for a few minutes about random shit when she sent a message that just said I'm here. I was almost in a panic. I never actually thought she was coming over. Let her in and I was shaking like a high school virgin. I got over that pretty quickly and 3 minutes later we were in bed making the slowest, most passionate love I did ever. It turned into an amazing, almost nightly thing for a couple of months before mom started dating a guy she worked with and we ended things cheerfully. 20 years later the ex that I hadn't spoken to since she moved called me. No hello. Just straight to did you seriously duck my mom? And hear a whole lot of laughter in the background. She was out with her mom and aunt and somehow it had come up. She'd never had a clue. Side note, she is still married to the guy she met, so I guess she might have been right. Friend's mom going through some tough times with her husband. Accidentally added one of our friends on Facebook. She started flirting with him and eventually they ducked. After this kept going on for a couple of months, dude decided to tell his friend's son about it at his house. The son cried. They threw hands at each other and everything was alright moments later. Don't really know what happened after that. Lost contact with both of them. My brother's best friend from high school dated my mom in his 30s. She had my brother really young, when she was barely 15. So when his friend was in his 30s, she wasn't yet 50. I will always remember the night he found out. They fought, and my brother's friend left the house and got into his car. My brother followed him out and punched him in the head through the driver's side window. He managed to go through the window and still connect with enough force to knock him out cold. I got super ducking drunk at the friend's mother's house. We all did really, but mainly me and the mum. But I did come as my friend was going through a bit of a tough time and it was supposed to be a nice surprise. My friend was going to her mum's for a nice night of merriment and the mum told me I should come to cheer her up, which I agreed was a good idea. Everything started out fine, but as she and I got more drunk, we started kinda flirting, something that had actually happened before when we were both drunk. Then when it was time for everyone to go to bed, I snuck into her mum's room. My friend totally knew, a fact I wasn't aware of until a little while after, but her mum then had to drive me to the train station to go home the next day. What happened after is I, like a complete coward, never apologized, even after I found out my friend knew, and I lost that friend. They deleted me from social media and didn't speak to me for almost 2 years. X200B, we did recently reconcile. I sent a long text a couple of months back apologizing and letting my friend know how much I missed them. They then recently reached out because they found out I'm expecting my first baby. I'm very happy to be back in contact with this friend. Tip for everyone: do not sleep with your friend's parents. It's a dick move. But should that ever happen and you want to keep this friend a friend, own up, apologize and then give them space. The truth is always better than a lie, and your honesty and apology will be appreciated. My first serious girlfriend's mom used to text me every day after me and her daughter broke up. Just friendly stuff at first. talking about music and other mutual interests, and I used her to keep tabs on what my ex was doing because I was dumb 16-year-old kid. Eventually it led to her telling me how much I reminded her of her high school boyfriend that killed himself, and she went on to tell me she lost her virginity to him and how much she loved him. Then things took a turn. She started sending very sexual texts which turned into nudes and phone sex and plans to hook up. Eventually I ended up walking away from it all before anything really happened. I didn't think much of it back then, but looking back at it now, I was a 16-year-old heartbroken boy and she was a 40-year-old married woman. So that's pretty ducked up to think about now. Basically groomed and taken advantage of by someone I thought was my friend. When I was 20, I got accepted to university in Canada. I am a French guy and my mum put together a BBQ to celebrate it with my best friends, among which was my actual best friend girl my age, who lived far, so she would stay the night. My mum and dad were already getting divorced and sleeping in separate rooms back then, so there was no doubt they will ever get back to normalcy in terms of their relationship. After most people left, and I was drunking my way around talking about Canada with another friend, my now former best friend and my dad made sure my mum went to bed and carried on drinking together. All I remember after is me trying to figure out where the heck my friend was in the morning as the guest room was empty. It took so much fighting denial to realize she had been sleeping with my dad all night. Mum was destroyed. So was I. They both denied it and said they just talked. I still cannot believe this happened, but with retrospective my dad has been such a crap dad to his kids and wife, and that friend has not been nice to me either. My dad slept with my best friend when I was 15. It caused my parents' divorce. They actually got married when she turned 18, but they both cheated so much it didn't last. In other words, I feel your pain, and I am sorry you had to go through that. I was at a friend's birthday party. My friend was in her mid-20s. I was 30. Her mom was in her early 50s. She and her mom took really good care of me after my father passed. They made sure I was eating and that I actually left the apartment every day, as I was prone to just sit around being a depressed sad sack. Friend's mom and I used to get stoned together. So when we were at her daughter's birthday party at her mom's house, she called me to her room so we could smoke a joint. She didn't want to do it in front of everyone, and it definitely wasn't the first time we'd gotten a little high together, so it was somewhat familiar territory. Maybe it was the weed, or the wine, or both, but as we're smoking and chatting, I just leaned in and kissed her. To my surprise, she kissed me back, and we proceeded to make out like a couple of horny teenagers on the love seat in her bedroom. She stopped for a moment, looked at me, and said, "Well, had I known you were interested we could have done this a long time ago." We made out a little more, and I told her that we should stop because we were going to get caught. So we kissed and groped one another a little more and returned to the party. The next day she stopped by my apartment to see how I was doing, which wasn't uncommon. That day was slightly different. She was always a very good looking woman, but that day she had more carefully applied makeup, some nice looking earrings and a blouse that showed off more cleavage than usual. I invited her in and we were off to the races. We both had a great time, but I thought of my friend and said that we probably shouldn't do this again. She didn't really respond to it and we continued to cuddle for a while. The next day she called me and said that she thought she may have lost her earring on my bed or my couch, which I thought was BS. But it turns out that the earring was indeed in between the cushions of my couch. She came over to retrieve it and we went at it again and again and again. This went on for months until I finally was moving out of state. It never happened again. We never spoke of it, and my friend never found out. Sadly, my friend's mom passed 5 years ago. I thought about telling her, but it just seemed like a bad idea. R.I.P. Julie, you were smoking hot and just an all around great woman. One of my first girlfriends in high school, her mom used to seriously tell her that she should give me her virginity often. Then mom started flirting with me. One day while at their house, mom grabbed me in the hallway and kissed me. After we split up, mom used to still call me every now and then. One time asked if I wanted to come over and hang out. I did and mom got my virginity. A good friend of mine had this happen to her back in high school. She caught her also high school aged boyfriend sexting her 40-something-year-old mother, and it led to her mom and her stepdad's divorce. All while she was 17 years old. She still has a strained relationship with her mom to this day. We are 25 now, so this happened almost 10 years ago. I don't think you can ever get over that kind of betrayal by your own mother. I believe she still has a good relationship with her now ex-stepdad though. Her mom is now dating a man her age. But she will always be a predator in my eyes that seduces her daughter's boyfriend. So gross. My friend has a similar story. After graduation, she joined the Air Force US and continued long distance style with her boyfriend she is been with for over a year. She was at her first duty station where I met her, away from home for the first time, serving in the military and trying to make a life for herself. And then she got a call from her dad. Turns out her boyfriend and her mom had hooked up. She was devastated. Her parents divorced, and her mom kept going with the relationship. Total scumbag move. It messed my friend up. She didn't want to go home on leave because she was embarrassed, and her little brother had to witness all this. I think my friend's ex eventually married her mom. I've lost touch with my friend. I do not know if she ever forgave them or if they get along at all now. This was more than 20 years ago. A friend of mine's mom basically hit on a number of us in the group, and sadly it just became kind of matter of time before one of us caved, and it eventually happened. He saw it coming. I feel bad for him. Recently divorced mid-30s hot mom and a group of 18-year-olds. It wasn't me who did it. I went to HS with a kid whose mom was like this. She'd let him throw big parties and she would get topless in the hot tub with teenagers. It was extremely awkward because most of us didn't want to go in the backyard when she was out there because we didn't feel comfortable. Several of his friends had sex with her, and one of them ended up dating her for like 5 years and moving with her to LA. It was very bizarre. In my late 20s, I had a friend in a small mountain town in the western US. His mom gets separated, moves in with him. She is mildly flirtatious with me. No big deal. Not enough to raise any red flags. Job changes and I move to the city, 90 miles south. He comes on weekends to party a few times. Normal stuff. Then he comes to party and brings her. At her request we have a late night duck fest while he is passed out in the next room. Major violation of bro code by me, but she asked nicely. No surprise we weren't friends after that. This reminds me of the mom of my cousin's wife. When her kids were younger they used to bring home kids from school that had it really rough in their life. She would talk with them and help them. But one thing that was interesting she mentioned was that she was glad to have parents around who would initiate physical contact with them. She said she knew these youngsters needed physical contact since some of them had been feeling lonely or mistreated for a while. But she said she could not be the one giving it to them. Now reading these comments, I understand what she meant by that. I used to babysit a lot for my ex-boyfriend's family. It's how I met him. He had a toddler sister when we were dating. Parents were split, and I used to babysit for his dad when he had custody. I would watch his dad come back from dates totally rejected and broken. I felt horrible. He was a genuinely nice guy, attractive, a little older, but I have a thing for older men. One night he got a little flirty with me, and I got a little flirty back. I spent the night. It became a big issue the very next time I babysat. His dad expected sex now. His dad also started to get really touchy all the time. Like I was feeding his daughter in her high chair and he started groping me. Or I was changing a diaper and he had his hand up my skirt. I had to stop after he threatened to withhold my payment if I didn't blow him. That's how I ducked my ex-boyfriend's dad. I slept with my friend's mother at a music fest, was very high on acid. We were all hanging out. Me, my two friends who were dating, we lines call them David and Claire, and Claire's mother. Claire does not feel too hot. So David takes her back to the campsite and me and her mother are just left to the festival. We get some drinks in, do some dancing. One thing leads to another, and yeah. Afterwards we just sort of chilled in my tent for a few hours before hitting the party tent. Having a wee cuddle. Claire actually walked in on us after we had finished and I was so high I didn't even really know what was happening. I just knew that I had done something very wrong. So the festival ends and we all go home, and of course the sensible thing to do would have been to try patch things up with Claire and never talk to her mother again. You will find, however, that I'm not a sensible man, and proceeded to not only see her again, but date her on and off for 4 years. I have so many stories about those 4 years. Had sex with my ex-girlfriend's mom in high school. I was 18, so it was technically legal. She recently became a single mom just a year or 2 prior, and you could tell she was really trying to get out there more. Very good looking, not even just for her age. Worked in real estate, but I don't think she liked to mix things up with work clients, which I think was hard, because she was very successful in the area. Anyways, her daughter and I dated over a year until we broke up. I went over to retrieve some of my stuff. My ex-girlfriend wasn't there because she couldn't stand to see me, so it was just her mom and I. She was overly friendly, but not acting out of the norm until I was leaving, and she said, "If there's anything you ever need at all, please call me." I thought that was weird, but we exchanged numbers and I left. A week or 2 later, she began texting me. Eventually she invited me over to watch movies. Again, I thought that was weird and was some sort of ruse to get me over there to reunite the relationship with her daughter. But then she said her daughter was staying at her sister's and she was so bored she might finish this wine bottle all by herself. A few drinks actually sounded good, and getting booze at that age was hard. So I agreed. I'll spare you the details, but it didn't take long for it to happen once I got there. It was a great time, but I wasn't exactly proud of it because I was going through a lot at the time, as was she. I kept it to myself and never told anyone. We met up another time, but had to be quick to avoid her daughter who was set to get off work soon. And after that I realized I didn't want to do it anymore. And a few weeks later, I shipped out for the military and left my entire old life behind anyways. We haven't spoken or seen each other since. Now 10 years later, I also haven't really talked to or seen my ex either. She randomly added me on social media a few years back after being blocked this whole time. For other reasons, I accepted thinking she was going to apologize or at least talk and we could be cool on better terms. She didn't, but would still randomly like my posts, and I thought it was awkward seeing her posts regularly and reminded of my secret, so I blocked her. Needless to say, I am pretty positive she doesn't know. A friend at school's mum was pretty hot. She was relatively young compared to most of our mums, and his dad was quite a bit older and absolutely minted. When we were young teenagers it was a bit of a running joke to give him shit about his hot mum or how his dad was her sugar daddy. Fast forward to the end of 6th form, end of high school for US readers, when we were all 18 and he was having a party at his massive house to celebrate. Most people were outside getting drunk in the garden, but I had a bad few months family stuff, so wasn't really feeling it. I decided to go and chill inside for a bit, and in the kitchen I found his mum just drinking wine and looking forlornly out the window. I asked if she was okay and she pretty much unloaded her issues. She was miserable. She hated his dad. She'd settled down without having a life first. Felt trapped because she could not afford to leave. Loved her kids etc. I opened up about my issues too with my family and it actually felt good to talk to a relative stranger about it. I now realize I should have been seeing a therapist. Anyway, one thing led to another and she started making out with me. I didn't stop her. She then led me upstairs and the rest is history. On the one hand, it was pretty awesome. She was smoking hot. I was pretty inexperienced, and she really knew how to communicate in the bedroom. On the other hand though, I knew I was betraying my friend and ducking up his parents' marriage, plus I could hear all my friends laughing and partying outside. A few months later they got divorced, and I understand she got a bit shafted in the deal because she'd cheated on him. I do not know if that was me or she did it with someone else too. I'm pretty ashamed about it, but I also realize she was using me too. I was never under any illusion we had some special connection or anything, but I can see she just wanted to duck someone out of catharsis or frustration, and maybe subconsciously to force the problems in the marriage into the daylight so she could finally get out. Friend S mum was hot but miserable in her marriage. Ducked 18 me at a party to feel younger and probably to sabotage her marriage. I had sex with one of my best friend's mom. It was Thanksgiving and I was driving her back home and she confessed that she didn't have sex in years since she was a widow. I told her that I didn't have sex in months since I was moving. We talked a bit more and we sorta flirted, and once we got to her house she asked me to come inside and we did the deed. I hooked up with my student S mom. I was teaching an after school program, so I saw her almost every week at pickup. Sometimes her husband would pick up. Yes, she was married and we would talk a lot to the point that we became friendly. Well, I was going through a divorce and happened to bring that up one time and she very quickly gave me her phone number and put her hands on me. She was not being shy about it. Something like out of a movie. Next time I saw her she asked me out to lunch and I said sure. We met up, had lunch, she paid, and she went on to tell me about how her and her husband were not sexually involved with each other and they were free to see other people. We went back to my place and the sex was wild. That was the only time we hooked up though, as I started dating someone shortly thereafter. Her kid was one of those I will duck your mom's barks live kids. So I would just chuckle to myself when I saw him. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing for more videos.